Standard Oil is a part of history. However, her godfather remained. Therefore, most of the oil companies in the United States are descended from this huge petroleum enterprise. And you know exactly who created this monster. Rockefeller. Yes, there are hundreds of videos on YouTube about Rockefeller. And you'll ask, why do you want to watch another one? But you'll be very surprised when you see how Rockefeller still influences our lives and how he made us doomed. Well, you're in the year 1865 in Pennsylvania, and right now, oil is like a gold rush. Why? Because it replaced whale oil, which was used to illuminate homes. Also, it doesn't belong to anyone. Take it, pump it, and get rich. Who would give up? I think not. However, the oil had to be transported from Pennsylvania to the refineries, and there was a guy named Johnny who noticed what made him a Rockefeller. Here are his words. When ordinary players extract oil, businessmen process it. Therefore, he bet on oil refineries. He made kerosene, which was a substitute for whale oil. In 1870, the Standard Oil Company appeared. It was she who gave America light. Why Standard? Because the company was the only one in the industry ready to guarantee the constant quality of kerosene. In addition, it became very cheap, which made it possible for every American to buy the product. To achieve this level of product, Mr. Rockefeller focused on process optimization and waste-free production. For example, instead of buying barrels to transport oil, he bought a forest and made his own products. The price dropped from $2.5 to $1. As I said above, transportation was an important factor. Because of the company size, Johnny was able to negotiate with railroad kings. In this way, he transported his products at prices several times lower than the market prices. Back to you. You keep pumping oil. Your life has radically changed. You even have luxury items that you have never heard of. However, you have one problem. Mr. Rockefeller. Right now, he's united with the largest railway companies and they created the South Improvement Company. In simple terms, you have no chance to survive due to the increase in tariffs. Actually, this company never operated, but everyone freaked out at the moment, and Standard Oil acquired 22 of its 26 competitors. Congratulations! You're able to imagine what Franklin Tarbell went through. Remember this last name. With the railroads under his control, Rockefeller could supply kerosene to every home in the country. However, the railway companies weren't satisfied that he became so large and enjoyed such great discounts, so they decided to end it. They had more power. So how would Johnny be able to transport oil? He solved the problem that no one could implement: to transfer oil through pipes. Just imagine the power Rockefeller had. He laid thousands of kilometers of pipes, found the best people to protect him. It was worth a whole status. However, Johnny wasn't afraid of big expenses. He was afraid of small incomes. This brought the entire transport business to its knees. Another thing Rockefeller should be praised for is waste-free production. He used part of the waste for oil refinery fuel. The rest was turned into gasoline, petroleum jelly, or paraffin. And what did they do with gasoline? If most people drove electric cars then. You'll find out about it in a minute. The business was profitable, and Johnny gradually bought other oil companies and small businesses that didn't cost too much one by one. Competitors couldn't resist him. Rockefeller met them with a choice. He said, "Union with it or you'll ruin." And with all this profit, Rockefeller began the vertical integration of his business. He started buying up oil wells, equipment manufacturers, the entire oil industry. He owned everything, from the borehole to the consumer's door. And by 1880, 95% of America's oil production was concentrated in Rockefeller's hands. Standard Oil became a monopoly and was the largest world company at the time. But later appears a woman who strikes a blow to a Rockefeller empire. She publishes a book in which she exposes the monopoly and all the dirty tricks of the oil tycoon. Her work took the first step towards the collapse of the Standard Oil empire. In 1911, the Supreme Court found the company guilty of violating the Sherman Antitrust Act. This woman's name was Ida Tarbell. Familiar last name? Her father's company suffered from Johnny's actions. From now, Mr. Rockefeller had two problems. First, his company would be divided into 34 companies. The second is the light bulb that makes kerosene the new whale oil. In other words, irrelevant. Why a monopoly if it's not needed? However, John understood that oil is just a political process. Individually, these companies were much more expensive. Due to competition among themselves, they became more successful. So almost all major American oil companies were from Standard Oil, including ExxonMobil, Chevron, and others. And Rockefeller himself was recognized as the richest man in the world's first billionaires, while your great-great-grandfather's income was only $750. Today, his capital would be estimated at $400 billion. Anti-monopoly law was just a reset button, and Mr. John predicted it. How about light bulbs? So now people simply don't need kerosene. But at that moment, the roads began to be flooded with cars, especially after Henry Ford set up his legendary conveyor. And this was an opportunity for gasoline to enter the market. However, the first Model T car ran on ethanol, so farmers could create their own fuel. And it was logical. A cheap car on affordable fuel. That's what Henry Ford wanted. But then the prohibition was adopted and gasoline was the only alternative. However, it had a problem. It exploded at high compression. So, scientists looked for elements that could be added to gasoline to make it work, and they added ethyl and lead there, knowing that it is deadly. After this discovery, Standard Oil, General Motors, and DuPont united and created the Ethyl Corporation. Like all big companies that kill people, their marketing was on top. This corporation caused many people's deaths, and the amount of lead in our body increased 1,000 times. With the advent of oil, people's lives changed a lot. But did Rockefeller know that later wars would start over oil? A new era has begun where it was least expected. If we look at the largest companies in the world, we'll see that among the American companies, there's one from Saudi Arabia. But the main thing is how much the company earns. Let's take Apple. Its revenue was $100 billion for the year 2022, and Saudi Aramco, $161 billion. And with this money, they can create a city of the future worth up to $1 trillion. Most of Arabia is built by oil. But you'll say, what does Standard Oil have to do with it? Do you know the first name of Saudi Aramco? California Arabian Standard Oil. Standard Oil was the first company that started producing oil in Arabia. They assumed all costs and paid tax on each sold barrel. And the Second World War increased the demand for oil even more. Arabia received insane amounts of money, and the American company retained the primacy among the oil giants. However, the Arabs quickly realized that whoever has oil rules the world. In 1973, the price of oil soared due to the conflict between Syria and Egypt with Israel. So the OPEC member countries imposed an embargo on the oil sale and also increased the price of crude oil 3 times. The American economy was heavily dependent on Arab oil. Therefore, a decision had to be made. In 1974, the USA secretly agreed with the Saudis. And this secret was hidden for more than 40 years. Americans constantly buy oil from them, and the Saudis reinvest in the U.S. economy. In simple terms, America guarantees to buy oil from the Saudis all the time, and what the Saudis will earn, they will lend to the Americans. Everything happened secretly because America supported Israel, and this is unacceptable in the Middle East. Thus, the Saudis have invested billions of dollars in the U.S. economy. Those geniuses definitely learned from Rockefeller. Now let's put together all the puzzles about how the Godfather influenced the present. Remember the turning point in the oil industry. Cars. What destroyed the alternative to gasoline? A prohibition that was actively promoted and funded by our good friend Johnny. With his influence and finances, he could possibly implement this task without problems. Interesting fact, Johnny was a good friend of Henry Ford, who created cars on ethyl. On his deathbed, John appointed him a meeting in heaven, and Henry replied that it will definitely not be there. Although the prohibition forced Americans to drink alcohol even more, it completed the main task, to leave the only alternative, gasoline. And so GM and Standard Oil started making leaded fuel that hurt every human being. We lost 800 million IQ points because of him. Yes, you understand correctly that the world has become dumber because of lead. I dug up another conspiracy between GM and Standard Oil that may be controversial, but the story makes sense. The book Myth, Lies, and Oil Wars said that the companies destroyed the electric vehicles used by 9 out of 10 Americans. They also replaced trams by diesel buses that run on Standard Oil fuel. One of the reasons for it could be the cheap price for oil, and oil's more profitable price beside electricity. However, this doesn't change the fact that cities are now crowded with cars. The fact that the OPEC countries with these billions of petrodollars also took over this poor transport system confuses me. Just look at Dubai. No public transport, full of big highways. Do you know what the Rockefellers and OPEC funds are doing now? They invest in renewable energy. Paradox. Those who pollute the environment the most invest the most in ecology. Norway produces the most oil in Europe, But at the same time, it's also the greenest country in Europe. And Standard Oil, which is the reason we have the biggest environmental problems now, started this trend. For example, on April 20th, 2010, BP experienced the largest oil spill into the ocean. Oil had been leaking into the ocean for 3 months and no one knew what to do with it. And the Chevron oil spill in the Amazon rainforest in Ecuador, they led to the death of a huge number of animals and children. Therefore, oil is a thing of the past. Investment in green energy is a new key to power. The one who conquers her will become the new Rockefeller. Such power is focused not only on the oil market, but also on food industry. Cargill is the largest private company that owns all the food in your home. So click to find out about this secret giant.